Today I have some wood decor DIYs to share with you, mostly from the Dollar Tree, so let's get started. Here are the Dollar Tree wood items that we are going to be using for project number 1. I did forget to show those little cube wood pieces, but you'll see those here in just a second. So I'm starting out by removing that back from the picture frame. We don't need this, set that aside for another project, and then also removing those little clips that hold the picture in place. Then I'm taking my Jenga blocks, and here's where you can see those little wood cubes, and I laid everything out in like a lattice formation, or you could call them little X's if you want, and I glued everything together while it was still inside of these frames. And the reason I did that was to make sure after everything was glued together and then I paint everything, it's all going to fit snugly back together, and I won't have to worry about any of my little parts shifting around and not being, if they got off by like a little centimeter or something, it wasn't going to fit back inside of this frame. So I'm using wood glue here and then a paintbrush, and I just smear it across the bottom piece of my Jenga block, add it to that little cube, and then I let everything dry. Now everything is going to get a light coat of my ivory colored chalk paint. I don't mind some of the wood grain peeking through, and then I'm gonna start gluing things together. So using my Starbond super glue, I'm taking one of those Dollar Tree planks and I'm adding it to the back of this picture frame. Then I'm taking another one, I cut it in half, and I'm gluing each half to the sides of another one of those planks. And we're going to be creating a little box here. So this is the bottom and the sides, and then my fourth plank is going to be the front of it. So it has an opening at the top, and you'll see what I mean here in just a second. Next, I do take some of my my hot glue, and I'm gonna just run a bead along the seam on the inside of my box, and then take my silicone Dollar Tree spatula, smooth out that hot glue, and this is just gonna reinforce my box and make sure it's gonna stay held together. Next, everything is getting a coat of distressing. I thought I put a light distressing on this. I think I went a little heavier than I had intended to, but distressing is personal preference. However you like to distress, heavy, light, not at all, whatever you enjoy. Now we're going to add that little box onto the picture frame, so you can see how I'm gluing it here, and that's why we put that back on the back of the picture frame so that there would be a back to this little box as well. And then I'm gluing my little lattice piece into the frame as well, all with my Starbond super glue. Then I'm just gonna add in some floral foam. I topped it off with some sheet moss, added some greenery, and that was it for this one. Let me know what you think. For project number 2, we're using the Jenga blocks. I'm starting out using my wood glue again, and we are just going to glue 3 blocks together to form a row. Next, I needed to cut down one of these blocks, and in my last Dollar Tree Jenga block video, I had a bunch of subscribers tell me to use the miter shears. So since I have those, I thought that was a great idea. I thought that would work out perfectly, but I don't have the best hand strength. I'm pretty weak, so you can see I'm struggling a bit here to use these, but I also do think that my miter shears are pretty dull, and I probably just need to get a new pair. At least that's what I'm gonna tell myself. But once I finally got that cut down, I only needed to cut down 2, so it wasn't that bad. And then I just glued 2 additional blocks to it to form another row of 3. And these are going to form a little handle for our basket. So next I'm going to start angling my blocks to form a little arch. And I know what you're thinking, didn't I just do this and it didn't really work out for me? Well, we're doing it a little different here. And this was supposed to be a Pinterest inspired piece, but things never really turn out the way I want them to around here lately, so it totally doesn't look anything like what I was going for. But anyways, I started out laying down my first row, and then the next row I am putting directly on top, and you can see that they're kind of staggered. So I have one block that's overlapping 2 of the blocks below it, and then I'm adding my wood glue to the flat side of the block and then gluing it to the block underneath of it. So that's what's gonna help hold everything together here. Each row that I go up, I'm eliminating 1 block, and we're just making it a little bit shorter until I am left with 4 blocks on the last row. So once that first section was done, I let that dry, and then we're going to flip it over and repeat that same process on the back side so that the handle is in the middle and it's kind of going to be a basket look in the end. Not exactly what I was going for. I'll pop a picture of what I had intended to make up on the screen here. It was supposed to be like a geometric looking planter, but you know, it ended up looking more like a basket. So next time, I think I know how to get it to look the way I wanted. We'll see. Once I had everything added, all of my blocks glued down and dried, I did just take it out to my garage and spray painted it with Rust-Oleum slate spray paint. And now I'm taking some Dollar Tree rub-on transfers. I thought I had gold ones that were this little like foliage looking, but apparently I don't. I only had the black, so I thought that would be okay. It would be a little more of a subtle look than the gold ones would be. Just added on some of these rub-on transfers throughout the sides of the basket. And last, I don't know what happened to the lighting here, but I just added a bow. I tied it on with some jute string just so that I can change it out if I ever wanted to or take it off entirely. And that was it for this one. I have it staged to be a little fall right now since we are starting to head into that season. For my next project, I had wanted to use dowels, but apparently I didn't have any, and none of my Dollar Trees did either. So I went to Walmart and found these skinny sticks. It was a pack of 75 for about $3. I only ended up using 12 of them and cut them in half so that I would have 24 pieces. Next, we're going to glue 4 pieces together to form a square, and apparently I didn't cut the first one exactly in half, and I used that one as a guide. So I ended up with more like rectangles than squares, but it still worked out. And you're gonna end up with 6 rectangles or squares if you did it correctly. Next, we're gonna start attaching the squares together, and I'm using hot glue to do this. So I'm taking one of the squares on the bottom and then taking another one at a 90-degree angle kind of and attaching it. And I'm going to do this for 4 more of the square pieces all the way around on each corner of that bottom square. I attach a little dab of hot glue on the corner there, add the 2 pieces together, and then I do add a little bit more hot glue on the inside of where the 2 pieces, where the 2 corners meet, just to reinforce it a little bit and make sure it's going to hold up. For the top or bottom piece, I ended up putting the structure, whatever you want to call this, the little sculpture, upside down and attaching it that way. I found this to be the easiest method. Once everything was all glued together, we're heading out to the garage to spray paint, and I'm using this Rust-Oleum metallic in the color Antique Brass, and then I'm also using Rust-Oleum in the semi-gloss black. And I'm gonna start out with the Antique Brass, and we're gonna just spray paint the entire little sculpture here in this color. But while it is still wet, I'm gonna take that semi-gloss black color and we're just gonna lightly mist it over top of the whole thing. So I don't really want this black to show up, but I wanna make that Antique Brass look just a little bit more aged, and I love this combination together. But that was it for this one. Let me know what you think. For my next project, I am so excited to have found these laser wood cutouts. I have several of them when I went on vacation, so I had to pick them up, and I'm going to start out by painting them with a few different colors. So I wanted to make them look kind of fall-like, and I wanted the colors to almost look like an ombre and blend together like you would see naturally on the leaves in the fall. So I'm using a combination of pumpkin and lacquer on 2 of the leaves, and then a combination of moss, maize, and pumpkin on 2 more of the leaves to add that fall touch. And I just played around blending my colors, going back and forth while they were still wet so that I could get that nice gradient ombre effect. Next, I found several of these bamboo cutting boards while I was on vacation as well, and was so excited, so I had to use one of them right away. And then I'm taking some wood glue, painting it on the backs of my leaves, just like I did with my tower blocks, and then attaching them to my cutting board. Next, I wanted to do something a little different. So I've been looking at this wood burning set at Walmart. It's $19.99, and I've really been wanting to play around with it. So last weekend, I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna pick it up and we're gonna see how it works. And I am so glad that I did. I'm actually gonna do a review with all the different attachments coming up soon on another video. So what I'm doing here is I wanted to print out the phrase, "Leaves are fallen, autumn is calling," and I just printed it out on thick cardstock with my Cricut machine. And I'm going to trace over the letters with that heat tool or soldering iron. I'm not really sure what the technical name for this thing is, but I was really surprised when it didn't just burn up the edges of the paper. This also has a heat dial, so you can turn it up hotter or leave it a little bit cooler if you want to. I had it on the middle setting for this, and I actually think I probably could have turned it up a little bit hotter. Some of the letters that, I didn't have that little insert piece to add in the center of the A or the center of the E. I just took my time and just kept outlining it, going down a little bit further out from the line I had previously, and that worked out just fine. So you can see here my A's and my E's, they are filled in so that you can tell what the letter is. And then here's a close-up of how I did the bigger letters. Like I said, I just went in a little bit each time until I was happy with how the letters were looking and how they turned out. And I think this looks amazing. I absolutely love it. Done with all the letters, I just added a few little dot details around the leaves to tie that part into the wood burned letters a little bit more. And then I took my antique Waverly wax and I went around all of the edges and then the corners a little bit just to make it all have a cohesive look a little bit more aged or rustic so that it tied together with those wood burned letters. And that was it for this one. I think this is my favorite. I don't know why I left it for the end, but let me know what you think. That's all I got for you today. I'll see you in the next one.